Hey everyone, welcome to the ATL Golfs Podcast, where from Southland to Standard Club, we cover the entire Atlanta golf scene. I'm your host, Andrew Lee, and I'm joined by the founder of ATL Golfs, Joe Davis. Joe, how are you? Saw you earlier today.
Yeah, doing well, Andrew. I had a fun little range sesh over at Marietta Golf Center. Shout out to those guys. How'd you feel like you were hitting today, Andrew?
I'll speak for myself. I was not hitting them well. Just a waste of money out there. I need to go get a lesson again. That's really what I need to do.
Luckily, the range balls are about as cheap as you can find in the Atlanta area. I mean, I think for 80 balls, we paid like $10 or $12 each. So happy days there. So, well, before we jump into the episode, I did want to say a big thank you to all of you watching. First episode got such great feedback, positive and critiques and ways to make it better. And it's one of the things I love about this community at large is that we're all, I feel like at this point, we're all trying to build everything up. And sometimes that means saying, hey, this part sucked or this part's great. And I just want to say thank you so much for all the feedback and all the subscriptions and all the shares. And let me take this time to hit the proverbial rate, share, subscribe, or I did it wrong. Subscribe, rate, and review. There it is. Subscribe, rate, and review. We'll get that right as we get used to this. But again, yeah, exactly. But thanks so much, everyone, for the support. So,
hey, everyone. Before we get into episode 2, I want to talk about our sponsor of this episode, Neverlost. Neverlost connects your contact info to your golf gear, so if something's lost, anyone can tap or scan to return it. Over 80 golf clubs get lost every month on golf courses, with pro shops having an average of 100 lost items in their pro shops. Neverlost aims to be the solution. Losing golf gear is easy. Getting it returned with Neverlost is even easier.
Andrew, what do we got on the docket today?
Ooh, we have a good one. Today we are reviewing Steel Canyon Golf Club. It is in Sandy Springs, Georgia. It's about 15 miles north of Atlanta. If you've been golfing in Atlanta for, at least over a month even, you've seen it pop up on a Saturday. You and your buddies are looking for a tee time. Everything's booked up until 4 p.m. And lo and behold, you go on Golf Now and you see Steel Canyon Golf Club. You're like, whoa, this is cheap. Whoa, they have tee times from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. Whoa, let's go ahead and book this one. I'll meet you guys there. It's only, 20 minutes from me, 30 minutes from me. It's a great meeting point. I love Sandy Springs. So yeah, we're covering Steel Canyon.
And love it. Yeah, I think it is the most infamous course I think we can say in the Atlanta area. We'll get to exactly why that is. Before we jump into the review, though, Andrew, I know you're a bit of a history buff. You always like to look at interesting things about the courses. Did you find anything interesting about Steel Canyon that folks might not know about?
Oh yeah, tons. So I think it's relatively new. I would say, some people would call it vintage now, but it was built in 2002. It was an executive course. It was initially called the Blue Heron Golf Club. It was then purchased by new ownership in 2009. And then in 2012, Scott Bush, who owns it now, he started consulting the club and later became an owner in 2015 and owns it still to this day. One of the more interesting things is that it was designed by Mike Riley, who's designed kind of some really nice courses around the Georgia area. He designed Governor's Town Club, which is in Ackworth, Georgia, Iron Horse Golf Club in Milton, and then a course that I've played before, actually, Kelly Plantation. And
I've played it too. I've played Kelly as well. That's so bizarre. Yeah, it's a great course.
And he designed it with Fred Couples, so like huge names behind this. And lo and behold, Steel Canyon is also designed by the same guy. One really fun fact that most people kind of do know, but don't know the exact facts about it. It was built over the original Morgan Falls landfill, which explains the vent stack that's used in their logo to let the trapped methane gas out into the air. This probably explains why it kind of smells like a cow pasture up there.
Yeah, the smells of Steel Canyon are one of the more infamous aspects to it. But you know what? I do appreciate, being, I don't know if resourceful is the right word, but what's what I'm looking for? It's not recycle. It's I'm at a loss for words.
Yeah, I am too. They had a lot of pushback with the government, and it was a long project because they had to basically meet all these environmental reasons or whatever to build this over all that?
Sustainable. There's the word. Friend's a little slow this morning, or this afternoon. But either way, sustainable. I do appreciate the sustainability aspect, right? You take a landfill, you turn it into a golf course, right? There's obviously going to be some issues with that, but in general, you're getting usage out of something that would normally just be a bunch of trash. So, I think there's something to that. That's kind of cool.
You guys, for this course review, we're reviewing Steel Canyon, obviously, and we are lucky to be graced by Scott Bush, the owner of Steel Canyon. You'll see him in the middle right here. And so, yeah, Scott, welcome to the podcast. If you want to do a little intro and introduce yourself.
Sure. Thanks for having me, guys. And it's been a pleasure to get to know you before the podcast, so I appreciate that. A little bit about me. I've been in the golf business now for 30 years. Been in a variety of positions, working for other people that owned and operated golf courses. I've been a consultant, financed golf courses, but for the last almost 15 years, I've been an owner and operator of Steel Canyon in Sandy Springs.
That's awesome.
Love it. Great. Well, I think what we're going to do now is jump straight into this course review. And Scott, I will say, just on the front end, Steel Canyon has some infamy, I would say, in kind of the Atlanta golf sphere of things. So we're excited to kind of get your perspective on some of these, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So let's jump in. So Andrew, let's talk about the layout in general, and as you mentioned, kind of in the history about how it was built on a landfill. That creates obviously some interesting challenges, I'm sure, Scott, which we'll get into in a second. But Andrew, what's kind of your take on the overall layout for Steel Canyon?
I think I'm biased because I love little quirky holes, so I'd give it a higher rating than most. I think I'd give it like a solid 7.5. I think it's really fun. We'll get into more of the rating system and talk about more that could make it better. But I'm like big fans of all the holes over there. I just think they're fun. What about
every
you,
hole? Every hole, even 8.
I think 8 is cool actually, because if I can stripe a 4-iron and it just lands right there, it's just I'm like, dang, I just hit a good shot.
Well, every hole is great if you hit the great shot.
Yeah.
That's right.
But any shot where I'm, having to hit it blind and then, a pleasant surprise happens, I think that's more fun than watching my ball just go into the woods. I'd rather just not know sometimes. I'd rather just be like, oh, it's lost, guys. Gallery drop.
Gallery drop. Yeah, I would say, so backing up a little bit as far as how we do the course reviews for those who maybe this is your first episode, it's all handicap. We're not comparing a Steel Canyon against Atlanta Athletic Club, right? We're going to compare Steel Canyon against other sort of executive style, pars, 61s, 62s, those types of things. And so that's kind of how it's all handicapped, as well as from the price point as well. So I would say for me, the layout is I like the quirk. I definitely appreciate some quirkiness that's involved. I would say that I think on the front in particular, I feel like I think I hit a pitching wedge 2 or 3 times and a couple more on the back. So for me, when I'm thinking about layout, I'm usually thinking about how many different clubs am I pulling out of the bag. And there was a handful of par 3s that I felt that I was hitting similar shots on, just in general. So that would be probably one of my biggest issues that I would take with any course really is redundancy of shots and kind of the selection. So you said 7.5. I might, just based off the price point and I'm thinking of the Fox Creeks of the world and Legacies and that sort of thing. I might go a touch lower, maybe a 6.5 or a 7. So Scott, I'm curious, when you guys when you took over, what your thoughts are in general, just kind of layout and obviously the challenges that you guys have to deal with a course built on a landfill.
Well, the landfill definitely does create some challenges. For one thing, we can't dig down at all, other than to repair. Like if we have an irrigation leak or something like that, we can't dig down. So if we want to modify a hole, we want to move earth, we are absolutely not allowed to do that. So that does create one set of problems. Another set of problems we have is that because the landfill is built with a clay cap, every drop of water that falls on Steel Canyon has to run off. None of it sinks into the ground. And so during the winter especially, we have areas that stay a little wet, to say the least. Hole number 2 in particular, just because the water all goes to that spot, and due to some poor construction, the water just doesn't get off. So we've spent a lot of time fixing that, and actually I think most people would tell you that compared to where it was 10 years ago, it's a lot drier than it used to be. But it still does create some problems for us because the water just can't go anywhere. The course is interesting in terms of the layout. It was actually built by a woman back in 2002, and she wanted to make sure that because it's only on 100 acres, the entire thing, including the drive-in range, is only 100 acres. And so that's why it's an executive length golf course, but she wanted it to be hard. And so, it's not just a typical pitch and putt that, you're throwing up 70-yard darts and trying to do it. That's why the 8th hole exists the way it does. Some of the other, questionable design decisions were due to her desire to make it a hard executive length course. And so, for example, when we got there, there were 70 bunkers on the golf course. Which is an extraordinary amount for any golf course, and for an executive golf course, is just off the charts. I think Augusta National has like between 20 and 30, for example.
Right.
So we had 70. So for a lot of our customers are beginners or high handicappers, and so we actually filled in a whole bunch of those. And I think the golf course is a lot better because of it. So that's some of the design things I think are kind of interesting about it. We have 1 par 5, 5 par 4s, but then we have 12 par 3s. And so to your point about, the same club over and over, well, we have 12 par 3s. So you're going to get the same club multiple times for sure.
Yeah, that's interesting. You almost find yourself so you have the original designer who wanted to make it more difficult, but then what's happened with the course is it attracts beginners because of, whatever, perception, length, that sort of thing. So you're caught in this kind of weird in between almost of what your identity is based off of what originally it was set up to be and kind of what it's evolved to.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a strange place. It was a much stranger place when we first got there, and it was this very hard par 61. It's like, this is not working out so well. So, we would have beginners come in. They're like, this is hard. There's a par 3 that's 220 yards all carry down a chute of trees. So, and that's the 8th hole that you guys were talking about. So there were a lot of very strange things like that. We've added tees over the years to make it a little easier, especially in the white tee area, and even some of the reds. We've added some red tees as well. So, there's some interesting design decisions that were made back in the day. And I've seen old designs. In our attic, we have all the original sketches for how they were going to do it, and there were actually some really good 9-hole courses that were laid out. That if you could do it all over again, you probably could have made a really good 9-hole course.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
That's awesome.
Cool. So let's go on to pace. We won't spend too much time on pace. Pace is, it's sort of, sometimes it just depends on when you get there. But
it does.
No, that's true.
But honestly, any course that's going to attract beginners, you already have to handicap the pace, right? Because you have beginners who are going to be searching for balls and everything else, which is, a bit of a just whatever. But Andrew, when we went, it was kind of a typical 4.5 hour round.
I don't think we even took that long. We weren't waiting super long. I did play recently though, and I was waiting a bit. I honestly, I'd give it just an average 5. I've played a lot of rounds now that I play in Georgia, especially on the weekends, take 4.5 hours. Which in my opinion, I think that's a long round. I mean, I shoot 110 and I can still finish a round in 3.5 hours. So there's no excuse at some point. So I think it's just an average 5, especially for golf in Georgia.
Yeah, we won't spend too much time there.
Well, one thing I will say about that is we have 10-minute tee times on the weekends, and on weekdays we're at 11 or 12 minutes. And actually in the winter we go up to 11-minute tee times during the weekends too, which is pretty big for a public golf course. Yeah, the Chastains of the world, they're I think at 8. So we did after COVID, we found the pace of play really sped up. So we've stuck with those bigger tee times, and that's actually helped most. I mean, we have guys that on the weekday that'll get around in 2.5 hours, and they like that. I'd say 4 is a good number on a weekend in the morning, and then of course times get longer as the day goes on.
Yep, makes sense. So tee boxes, I would say when Andrew and I played, tee boxes was a hot topic of conversation. So we found it very inconsistent, I would say. So you'd have some tee boxes, and obviously when you're having a lot of par 3s, which means irons on a lot of those tee boxes, they're just gonna naturally there's some they're gonna get beat up. But there were some tee boxes that were definitely beat up and not a ton of grass, and then there was 1 or 2, I think, where at that time the rough, it was like rough, like Oakmont rough almost, like up above my foot. I was like, I mean, I guess I need practice hitting out the rough, but I wouldn't prefer it on my tee box there. So, Andrew, when you went back the second time without me, was it pretty much the same, or was there any differences you noticed?
Yeah, I think for me, like, hole 4, that tee box over there, it tears me up. And so I can't get a ball down, or I'm just like, it's buried. But a lot of the tee boxes were like that, pretty long. One thing I can say is at least they're like relatively even. I just actually played Chastain yesterday, and I felt like I was on hills trying to hit my balls. And so I'm a big stickler for tee boxes though, because I really need that even footing. That's kind of the area where you're supposed to be able to hit the most perfect shot to set you up, right? And so you shouldn't be punished in the tee box to hit a bad shot, because then it can go left, it can go right, or knowing me, I can top it or chunk it if it's not completely even for me. So I'd probably give it like an honest 4.5. Definitely below average. In my eyes, average is even and short, and then a 10 would be just perfect, super square, super flat, just all the divots and everything's repaired.
Yeah, I mean, real quick, Scott, I would say 4.5. I would probably knock it. I'd probably more in the 3.5 to 4. I mean, and I would prefer. We also have the mats as well, which mats are kind of that weird thing where it's like, I appreciate that I'm not hitting off of deadpan or thick rough, and I have a mat, but it's still a mat. So. So for me, I'd probably go a touch, maybe like a 4 or 3.5 for the tee boxes. So, but yeah, Scott, curious to kind of get your take on that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. We've always had trouble with our tee boxes because when it was built, the tee boxes were built too small, and that's that's just the reality of it. Is these par 3 tees, especially, they were built to be maybe the size of a par 4 tee, and so when you're consistently taking, divots out of it, it just beats it up pretty fast. The mat comment is, and we're trying to grow out the tees a little bit so we could get them healthy. That was a short-term thing, and I think we fixed that back down. We're taking the heights back down so we could just get a little grass growing, because they tend to get destroyed during the year. But the mat comment is an interesting one, because the reason we did that is we have a couple of tees that are in the shade, and we only have it on 2 tees, and we put those at the front of the box, and so only 10% of the tee is a mat. It's not like the entire tee is a mat. The reason we did that was during the winter, when if you take a divot in October. It's going to be there until April.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what we were hoping is that there are some people who don't mind hitting off mats, and if we can get some of those people to hit off the mats during the winter, particularly, then that'll just be less pressure on the actual grass, and so we'll have more grass when we get to April.
Yeah, maybe a question for our audience would be interesting. I don't necessarily hate hitting off mats. It's just is what it is. It's more, I guess, for me the consistency between kind of all of it. But I wonder what folks would say is, what if you just did mats, the whole thing? Because if the issue is that there's not enough room, and you're already limited on 100 acres. So there's not, and there's hills and there's all sorts of stuff. There's not really places you can go and magically build out more space. At least for the par threes, I wonder what folks would, what the public would say to, you know what, we're just going to make it all mats. So it's consistently mats. You know what you're getting here. It's going to be even. You're not going to deal with rough. But maybe, I don't know this. Does that have its own separate list of side effects or issues that you guys have to deal with when you decide on that?
Well, I think it would be good, except that I think the reaction would be a lot like yours initially, which is, oh, you got these mats on these tees. How? That's not real golf. So I think if we did, and there's 2 tees that are in the shade. They're on the north side of hills. We'll never be able to get sun to them. It would be great to make them all turf, but I think people would not like it.
Yeah, I think there would definitely be a certain percentage. I would be interested though, because if coming to Steel Canyon, I'm expecting sort of it's a budget experience for me, so I know I'm going in and paying a little less, so my expectations are going to be a little less. If I don't know, maybe we'll put a poll out, Andrew, and see what people would say. Would you rather have sort of inconsistent or the current, I guess, structure how we expect it Steel Canyon, or if they flipped it and totally went to mats, like what's the give and take there? I don't know. It'd be maybe interesting to.
I think I'm part of the minority. I love the mats.
I feel like they help beginners. That's the funny thing. They do help beginners. I think I saw a study where it's like, because of the way it works, fatted shots, it bounces the ball up a little bit, and so you actually hit it a little bit harder.
Yeah. That's why I love it. I love bunkers and I love mats because I hit it fat. That's perfect for me.
But yeah, we'll put a poll out. Maybe we'll get some feedback from folks. So
yeah. Up next we've got fairways, Joe, and so I'll start. I think they're fairways. I can't really complain. As long as you hit it down the middle, it'll be there. You'll see it. It's not like it gets lost. The rough is pretty high, but I mean, rough is rough. So it's like, just because a ball is buried, doesn't mean a golf course is bad. I think, the rough is supposed to be the rough. It's supposed to be kind of difficult to find your ball. It's a punishing shot, right?
I'd push back a little bit. I don't know if rough should be so thick for the typical amateur at what's become known as a bit of a beginner course should end up in a lost ball. And I know you and I, Andrew, when we played, I think we lost 2 balls on the first hole because they ended up on that left side of hill, and I think it was a combination of or just thicker rough and I think maybe some grass clippings and that sort of thing. But there's so this kind of goes to more like course architecture and conversation there of how punishing should an errant shot be just because I don't get it on the fairway. And of course that depends on the course, right? If I'm a pro playing at Oakmont, well, I'm a pro, so I should be punished. If I'm, playing at a executive course and there's a couple par fours, should be that punishing. My opinion would be no, and that would probably be my biggest gripe. Because you're right, if you're in the fairways are fine, right? You're hitting off of it, grass, and there's a couple random little spots, but for the most part, it's perfectly fine, expected. But I do think the critical commentaries around kind of how the rough is built, especially I would say on one and a couple others. So curious there, Scott.
That's actually surprising to hear you say that, because actually the way that one was designed, it was waist high rough. It had the high fescue. I mean, it used to look like Shinnecock out there. I mean, there was just a little small strip of fairway, and then then the rough on the left side especially was waist high. So we've cut that down, and we normally try to keep that at about 1.5 inches or even less. That area on the left side isn't really rough. It's kind of junk. It's never been grassed. It's just stuff because it's way off the fairway. But usually you can hit it to the left side there and it'll roll back down in the fairway. That's the way we've cut it. So I'm surprised that you said that.
Yeah, I've noticed
Could have been just today,
when I play there, sometimes I'll pull it and then it'll kind of roll down or funnel down. Or, there have been times where I've gone up there and I've come out with 5 or 6 balls that aren't mine. And so I think, it just depends on your shot shape and how you hit it. If it gets high up, it just kind of sticks. And then if you hit like a little low runner, it'll, start funneling out. I think it just depends on that spot. Because sometimes it comes out, sometimes it doesn't. We did end up losing some balls. And so I think it just depends on your shot shape and how it kind of enters that area.
Yeah, that is surprising to me. Well, I'll check about it.
We're making Scott work. Sorry.
Exactly. I'm like thinking.
That's like I hit a perfect shot every time on one. I'm never even over there, so I didn't even know that thing existed.
What's left of the fairway? There's only fairway.
Why are you guys over there, idiots?
If I had to give the fairways a number, though, I think a 6 is fair in my opinion. I've definitely played places where the fairways are mostly just dirt or deadpan. And I don't see a lot of that Steel Canyon, which I'm, happy to see at least. I've kind of landed in pretty good spots, I guess, but I mean, I've played Steel Canyon like a little bit less than a dozen times. But for the most part, I've never had a shot where I'm just like, oh, what the hell is this? And then, if I do, hopefully there's a ground under repair or something, or, I just move my ball.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, you give it a 6. I'm kind of going back and looking at my course review of Fox Creek, which I would definitely compare the two courses against each other. And at Fox Creek, I gave it a 7. So I would say that I would probably knock it at least 2 points lower, just because I think that the fairways are a little bit healthier. And again, they're dealing with different ground and everything else, so it is what it is. But I would probably go more at a 5, maybe 5.5, a little above that, but that's kind of where I think I'd end up at.
All right. Sweet.
Ooh, what's next?
The next hot topic is greens.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of them, I'll be honest. I think definitely below average. I think a 3.5 is kind of my rating for them. Just a lot of dead areas, or very inconsistent. I need to, my body and my brain and my eyes tell me it's like, I got to hit it this way and hit it this way, and it's going to go this way. But, I hit it the same way every time, and then, it dies or it just speeds off. And I'm like, it's hard for my brain to get a grasp of how the greens are rolling.
Yeah, I would say for me, I'm probably like the same. I think probably the biggest gripe, if you will, is I think there's a lot, and this is just green keeping and everything else. The tufts, I don't know what they are actually, but the little tufts that are on there. So if that's in your line, good luck trying to balance out the bang 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 nature of that. And then I think I forget which hole it is on the back 9, but definitely some dead spots here and there. But and then you have, kind of to your point, right? And we deal with this with some other courses in the area where they're fast, not because they're rolled or super healthy, but sometimes the opposite, where there's just not enough friction. And again, that comes back to, obviously area and location and shading, all that fun stuff. So what's kind of the story or maybe history, or what's y'all's thoughts on the greens, Scott? Because what are they? Are they bent grass Bermuda?
Yeah, they're champion Bermuda greens.
Champion Bermuda. Great. Have they always been Bermuda?
Well, actually, they until 2011 they were bent.
Gotcha. And props for getting ahead of that, because bent greens suffered or continue to suffer in the summers here as it continues to get hotter in Atlanta. So y'all got ahead of that one at least.
Yeah, I mean the choice between bent and Bermuda is an interesting one, because they're going to be bad for 3 months of the year, whether you pick bent or Bermuda. So bent is much more conducive. They cost a lot more to maintain. So that's the one reason that people have gone to Bermudas because the cost of the fungicides to keep those things alive is just extraordinary. So only, the most exclusive private clubs can really afford it. In terms of the consistency, we, in the last couple of weeks, we've had and a lot of clubs are having this right now, which is Poa annua has started to come up. And if you've done any research, you know that Poa is become resistant to all the herbicides that are available out there. And so, we're spraying them in order to keep those populations down. But the herbicides they don't work terribly well, for one thing, because I'm not sure who it is, but they've banned a lot of the good stuff that kills Poa. Yeah, we used to have stuff that just knocked it out immediately and didn't hurt your Bermuda, but now the stuff that we do have isn't that great on Poa, and it stunts the Bermuda. So the Bermuda slows down in terms of its growth, so that's why sometimes it might seem a little unhealthy. And then we have Poa mixed in there too. So it's a problem that even exclusive private country clubs are having too. So we have consultants that come in and that sort of thing, and they're just like, yeah, it just sucks.
Yeah. What do you think is the difference? Because I played on Bermuda at different clubs. I think the most recent one that was like super exclusive and nice was Chateau Elan Legends, which is Bermuda greens, and obviously those are unreal. Pristine. Is it really just resources? Is it the limited play and so limited stress? What are they doing, or what do those kind of exclusive clubs do that keeps those Bermuda greens in tip-top shape that maybe you guys aren't able to do?
Well, Chateau Elan in particular has, I think they have 54 holes, if I'm not mistaken, and they probably, they're because they're a little remote, they don't do quite the volume that we do, and they can literally shut down an entire golf course for days or a week, and that definitely keeps the traffic down. It also allows you to be a little more aggressive with the ways that you get after some of these things.
Okay.
So that's definitely part of it. And there are certainly some resource issues that go into it. There's, private clubs are closed for an entire day every week. So whereas we're open, 7 days a week, and so public courses always have to work around customers. So, if we're spraying things, we have to kind of keep that into everything's a little harder when you're open 7 days a week.
Yeah. So just kind of phrase that a bit differently. So the biggest issue is that you almost can't be as called aggressive with fixing issues due to just the public nature versus the private nature is maybe a way of encapsulating that.
Yeah. Privates always have a big advantage in that.
Yeah.
In that sense.
Makes sense. Cool. So did we already give our rating?
Yeah, I gave a 3.5, 4. You didn't give a number value, but
Yeah, I think I'm pretty much right there. I'm probably not. I might actually be a little bit more gracious there. I might be more kind of the 4-ish range. Again, I would say compare it to, again, like courses. I'm just thinking about the Spots Creeks and the Legacies, and even some of the courses downtown, Yates, and I know it's not quite apples to apples. They're 9-hole courses, but or a little bit shorter. I would say their greens are a bit healthier. So judging on that scale, I'd probably be around that same.
Once Scott mentioned the POA, I'm like, I see that everywhere. I see that at Dogwood where I play. I see that. That's kind of why I don't like Fox Creek is the POA, and I would rather play Legacy because it's right there. I feel like Legacy doesn't have as much of that, those toughs. And so, that's a big gripe of mine. And so that's interesting to know about that. Because I always thought it was just like a mutated Bermuda or something. But to know that it's like some invasive plant species is really interesting.
It is. POA is bluegrass. It's or ryegrass, excuse me. That's Poa annua is perennial ryegrass. So it's everywhere, and it pops up. The weird thing about it is superintendents will tell you that they'll have some greens that they don't have any POA on it, and then there'll be some greens where it's literally taking over, and it's incredibly frustrating for superintendents and owners because nobody seems to be able to tell us why this is happening, right? You would think that they would all be sort of the same. Hey, I'm spraying the same stuff. The growth is the same. But yet some are much worse than others, and some courses are worse than others. And so it's very frustrating for superintendents and owners to deal with. And like I said, the herbicides that you can use on them have all been banned. So they gave us, and I do think the conspiracy theorist in me says that it's the chemical manufacturers did it so they could sell us more chemical.
Yeah. I'm interested to see if you could make a green out of the POA.
POA green.
Yeah.
Well, sure. Actually, on the West Coast, they're 100% POA. And actually in the Northeast, so POA is a cool season grass. And so if you go up to New York or to the West Coast, 100% of the greens are POA.
Okay. But they don't thrive in the summer?
Yeah, so the POA dies out in the summer and it starts to come back about this time of year. So if you would have come out to the course in July, we didn't have any POA and the greens were rolling great. And then after we aerated, part of the problem is that when you aerate, you pull the seeds, the POA seeds out, and they germinate. And so that's after we aerate or after anybody aerates, the POA starts to germinate again. Because you've pulled those seeds out. And then, so we'll attack it for that, and then they'll really start to come back in like February. We'll sort of, we're spraying now, and we'll get rid of it for the next couple of months. But then in February or March, when the seeds start to germinate again, then they pop out. Okay. And so the worst time of year is March, April.
Okay. Well, that's super interesting to know.
Yeah, that's good. All right. Let's see. Where are we at? Practice facilities. I would say practice facilities is, with the new top tracer and everything else, I think most people would say in that particular area, it's definitely one of the better practice areas. Just having access to a top tracer is so beneficial, especially if you're, attracting lots of beginners, because they have no idea the difference between a pitch and wedge and a 7-iron. They're just, they don't know. And so I think that's huge. And what I'm curious. And so practice facilities, I would say based off of, price point, everything else. I mean, I'm going to probably put that at a 7.5, 8, just because I think it's, I'll probably maybe like at a, I would say based off also bringing into some of the little chipping and the putt and green. Again, I'm kind of comparing it to the others. I'd probably be about around 7.5, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I totally agree. The chop tracer's fun. To know I'm hitting it off the heel every time, and that's why I'm getting that huge slice. So that's always super nice to know. Still can't figure that one out. But I mean, the price is great for the amount of balls you get. And it's huge. It's a huge practice area. You got some of the covered area, and then you got some of the uncovered area. And so I don't know. I've always had a good time when I practice over there, especially on the range.
Yeah, Scott. It's relatively new, right? I think y'all added it within the past 5 years. The top tracer. What went into that?
Yeah, 2 or 3 years actually. Only it's only been around. Yeah, it's pretty new. Actually, interestingly, the technology's been around for a long time, but then Top Golf bought it and sort of made some tweaks to it that really sort of made it a lot better system. So we're very proud of the range. It's the top tracer thing has been, it's one of those things where, as any business owner, whenever you do anything, people are going to like it and people are going to complain. Top tracer has been universally loved by everybody. It's been one of those things where everybody's like, this is fantastic. Thank you for doing this. It is pretty expensive to put in, and then the annual license fees are not cheap either. But it's worked out great.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well done. I don't even. I'm trying to think of another outdoor range that has that set. I mean, Bobby Jones has the sort of app thing.
I'm too lazy to set it up though.
I also kind of question how accurate it really can be. Some camera somewhere or whatever. So I'm trying to think. Is there another one that has? I don't know. Not.
Yeah, there's only one other one in all of Atlanta, and it's the triple decker one up off of 85.
Yeah.
Remember the name of it?
Oh,
It's the Northcrest
Northside?
round, North something like that. I don't know, but yeah, I know what you're talking about. Cool.
Northcrest.
Is it Northcrest? Yeah, I thought that
I
sounded
think
right.
that's what it is.
Awesome. So let's talk about the value. So weekday 18 with a cart, right? Is for 36. Is that right, Andrew?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what
and
I
then
pulled from the website.
and the weekend was 45, and then we walked that first day, for better or worse. That was a hell of a walk. And it ended up what? It was like 30, 32, something like that. It was just kind of a few bucks off of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, walking's tough out there.
Yeah, I don't recommend it the first time.
Yeah. I was thinking, you think short course, and so you're like, I'll walk it, and I also had my kid with me and pushing her, and yeah, I was beat. That was a good day for a workout. That's for sure. So the value's interesting. So again, I go to kind of what we're comparing it to. We're looking at again Fox Creek Legacy. They're similar. I think their weekend tee times is right around 40, give or take. So it's kind of around that same area, price range wise. And then same thing with Legacy. If you go to the 9-hole courses that again are kind of in that shorter range of things, Yates, I think for their weekday is going to be somewhere in the 20, but I think they're a little expensive anyways. But so I would say value wise, also taking into account the top tracer and that sort of thing. Probably going to, let me just make sure I'm staying somewhat consistent here. I'm a big fan, if you can't tell, I'm a big fan of kind of the way Fox Creek and they kind of done things over there, and the bit of variety and frankly the conditions. So for me, Fox Creek's like an 8 and 9. I would say Steel Canyon's probably closer to like a 6.5, maybe. Yeah, I'd probably put it somewhere in there. It's above obviously average, I think, but I would say the conditions in general, again, if I'm giving Fox Creek a 9, Legacy like an 8, somewhere in there, I think Steel Canyon's a drop off in conditions, so I'd probably put it in somewhere in that kind of 6-7 range.
Dang. Well, that's so funny. This whole time we're doing this review, you're being so harsh, and I thought I've been generous, but I'd probably give it a 5 in my opinion. I think it's just very average. Honestly, knowing more about the course and learning the history of it though has made me like Steel Canyon more. I will say before this, I was a Steel Canyon hater. And I think that's just because, like, combined with my terrible play and then with how the course was, it was just super frustrating. And now that I'm getting kind of better and stuff like that, I'm starting to see kind of like did we lose Scott?
I think I'm still
camera. No, it was just lost camera. It's still here.
There we are. I think when it comes like combined with it now though, I'm starting to like it more, but I'd give it like a solid 5.5. Just slightly above, what I think is acceptable. I keep touching back to 5 is average.
Right.
And so, I
would say just sorry to interrupt you, but I mean, look, a weekday 18, at 36, $35, you can pay that and play a 9-holer, in the area that's, not that much better. And it's not like it's more expensive than the Fox Creeks or Legacies of the world. It's pretty much around the same price point, just a drop in, I think, conditions overall, and maybe a little bit of a layout difference as well. So I think that's where I'm maybe a bit more higher, a little higher than usual at that kind of 6 range. But yeah, that's kind of where I'd kind of think about where I put it. I would also say I always like any course that gives me a bit of a discount for walking for sure.
Yes,
So
100%.
yeah. Anyways, Scott, curious to kind of get your response to kind of what we're thinking at there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's your personal opinions, and I respect that. We are, I think, a great value to be in the city. I'm fairly confident we're the most affordable golf course that isn't subsidized by a municipality, right? So we're privately owned. We have to pay property taxes. We have to pay, we have to make a profit. Municipal golf courses lose money generally. So for a privately owned public golf course, and I think we're the cheapest one in town, and to be as close as we are to the city and not have to drive 45 minutes, I think we've always tried to be a great value.
Yeah, and I think those are things, by the way, that the average golfer doesn't think about, right? They look at, and I'm in that grouping, right? I'm looking at, okay, I can play a Chastain, a city courses, right? Municipal courses, and pay similar, right, to Steel Canyon, but obviously a full length course, and some of the issues that come with that. And so, that's just going to be the perception of the typical golfer. I don't think most people are going to be thinking of, hey, well, they're privately owned, they're owned by the city, so they get to do extra prices. So I'm going to consider that in my decision making, right? So right. I know that's a unique challenge, but it's also difficult to, I don't know how you would even communicate that well across the board. So
no, and it's part of the deal. I mean, I'm not complaining. I knew that when I got into it, so it's not a surprise. But there are some different things that we have to deal with.
Yeah, no doubt. I would say for me, one reason that I despite whatever some of my negative opinions, I just appreciate, I think, the sustainability of the whole thing. Just being able to repurpose a landfill into a golf course, regardless of the quality, honestly, is I think really cool. And everything on top of that's kind of gravy, which I think is interesting and unique in that sense. I think my overall opinion ish of Steel Canyon, if I had to kind of sum it all up, I think there's some little stuff that can probably be done around talking about the tee boxes and a few other things. Be curious to kind of get some of our audience's feedback on some of the mat conversation we were having. But I don't think it's far off. But when I'm doing my comparison shopping and looking at price points for what I'm getting, regardless of the ownership structure, I think that kind of 6-7 range is fair in the grand scheme of things. But obviously, Scott, I understand your take on that as well. Andrew, any last words from you, man?
I think, I'm not gonna lie. Before this, if I had to recommend Steel Canyon, I probably wouldn't. But now, kind of talking about it and really thinking about it more critically and stuff, I would definitely recommend Steel Canyon. I love the quirks of it, the history of it. I'd probably take my friends out there and, give them a little, be like, oh, that's why that, that vent stack is there. It's because it's built on a landfill and this and that. And I just think, I think part of it, it's quirky, and I love quirk. Some people aren't the biggest fan of quirk, but, now that I've played a bunch of just regular average golf courses, it's, it helps keep it from being mundane. And I think Steel Canyon is a perfect example of, something that's fun. And I've spoken about this and how you said that it was meant to be hard. I said that if you can become scratch at Steel Canyon, you might as well just join the tour, because it is so freaking hard. And the fact that it had over 70 bunkers before, I can't even. I would have denounced Steel Canyon if that had 70 bunkers. And so
I think that's
cool to know.
But I think that's also a unique challenge that Scott, you're already, by filling in the bunkers or trying to deal with is, the identity of it, where the course layout and the structure and everything else was made to be hard, yet you have a ton of beginners coming through. And so their experience isn't lining up probably with what the intent of the original course was set up to be. and you don't have a ton of land to move around and maybe make it easier in some senses other than filling in some bunkers. So I think that's I think that's an interesting conundrum that obviously you have to deal with. But Scott, what's kind of the outlook for you with Steel Canyon? What are some things that you're working on, hoping to improve or build upon, and kind of some plans? Kind of give us a little inside there.
Yeah, well, the goal with Steel Canyon always is to improve a little bit every year. So every year we've tried to do things, whether it's adding a tee box here or there, improving the conditions, improving the drainage. People don't really appreciate how important drainage is on a golf course. It's actually, way back in the day, I built a golf course with Robert Trent Jones Jr. and his comment is he said, the three most important things in designing a golf course, he said drainage, drainage, and drainage. So, that is, I having seen it up close and personal, I absolutely believe that. So we do a lot of things that, if you go out, you wonder why there's a big trench dug out there. It's usually because of drainage.
Makes sense. I would say, I think educating the public on course stuff, I think it's starting to grow. I'm seeing a lot of accounts of, supers that have Instagrams that post about what they're doing and why they're doing it and how they're doing it. Wolf Creek's a good example here here locally that have been posting about all the different changes and redoing their tee boxes and all sorts of stuff there. And I do think that, Scott would maybe think about, okay, we want to show off things that we want to show off, hey, we're not sitting on our laurels. We want to show off that we're reinvesting back in the course. And my 2 cents would be to, whether that's on social media or otherwise, taking a look at that. Because I know for me personally, whenever Wolf Creek or the Frog or any of those guys are posting about things they're doing for the course, I tend to repost those on the ATL Golfs feed to help educate folks on, hey, these golf courses that maybe you've complained about or not complained about, whatever, they're reinvesting back in the course. They're worth supporting because they're not just raking in money. They're literally putting it right back into things that you care about, and that's worth supporting. So I'd highly recommend for you guys to maybe look into ways of doing that.
Sweet. Good advice, I
think. Pretty much end the course review here. Scott, Joe, thank you for being on this segment of the ATL Golfs Podcast.
Yep. Thanks, Scott. Appreciate the time, man.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate the time.
Last episode, we wanted to hear from you, and we want to hear from you again. But we asked you, what do you like and what do you dislike about golf in Georgia? We have a message here from Jared Clifford. We're going to take a listen to it now.
The brutal truth about Atlanta golf is it is not made for public golfers. We have quite a few public golf courses, none that are what I would consider like a B+ or A tier golf course. For the most part, the maintenance is underperformed and courses are overpriced. There's a lot of wonky layouts, quirky holes where courses were just built into land that wasn't necessarily befitting of a golf course. There's so many golfers in Atlanta that if you are not a part of a club or have connections to a club, you end up overpaying for golf. And it's actually really hard to keep up with the hobby here in terms of finances. You look at other major cities like San Francisco, Dallas, Denver, San Diego, maybe LA even, you can find some really high quality public golf courses. Now, if you look at the Midwest, they absolutely destroy us in public golf course availability. We don't have a single destination public golf course in one of the largest cities in the country. It's pretty astounding, actually. And I'm shocked there's not some sort of like resort quality course within a reasonable distance of Atlanta. Like I do not think Barnsley Gardens counts or Macklemore. Like those are way too far out of the city to be considered Atlanta. It's just a brutal place to play golf.
Joe, what do you think? I think, he's kind of spot on.
Yeah. So yes, I think that is if I had to pinpoint the thing that is the worst thing about Atlanta golf is that within ITP, there is not a premier public course. No doubt. That is the thing keeping us, I think, from being a true golf destination. But I do think that Atlanta offers something that is unique. And I've been to a decent number of places and played. I think Atlanta can be the best budget golf trip. If you come up here from Florida and you just play the city courses, you could literally play Browns Mill, Chastain, Tubbs, and then all the 9-holers. Yates, Johnny White, throw Candler in there.
Candler Park.
Throw Bobby Jones. You could do all of that in Chastain for like what, $200, maybe $225 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I don't even know how many golf holes that is. I think that is something that's unique about Atlanta, is that it is very accessible to the budget golfer. And I would say, based off the price point of a Browns Mill, a Tubb, Yates, a Johnny White, that what you're getting for what you're paying is pretty darn good from a value perspective. So that's always been my pushback of people that hate on the public golf scene. Compared to others, yes, there's issues as far as the standard or the higher quality end. But as far as budget courses that give you a good bang for your buck, I'd say I'd put Atlanta up there with a lot of them.
I don't know. I understand where Jared's coming from. And, it's as a new golfer and stuff like that too, especially, like, I didn't know any better. And then now that I have played some places a little bit outside of Atlanta where, I can pay the same price and the conditions are twice as good. I think it is kind of frustrating, especially I work in Atlanta, but I live in the suburbs. And sometimes I just want to catch, a quick twilight tea time. But I'd rather drive, the 30, 45 minutes outside of the city to play. And I think when it comes to budget, that's a good argument. But you can go to other cities and there's great budgets and the courses are still in better condition. And so, I don't know. It's kind of...
The only other thing I would push back on, I think, is, yes, I would say Atlanta golf is inconvenient, but I would also say that the sheer number of above average courses we have access to is awesome in any direction. Whether you're going to the west side towards Villa Rica, whether you're going to the east side to Conyers and Covington, or whether you're going northwest up towards Beaufort and Gainesville, or going north to Alpharetta and Johns Creek, and or going northwest towards Marietta and Woodstock and Canton. Like, all of those places have really, really, I would say, above average golf at decent prices. And it provides a decent variety, I think, of where you can go and you can experience. Again, the inconvenience of the drive is annoying, but let's face it, we live in Atlanta. Everyone drives everywhere. Our standards for what's far away is like what? What's far away? An hour and a half? Like,
it's funny. Like, living in the heart of Atlanta is where it's tough, I think. It takes, 30 minutes to get from Virginia Highlands to Midtown. But then once you're out of there, you're cruising on the interstate, 285, 85, you're cruising.
That also depends. But yeah, it depends. It depends, I guess, on the time of day on what the the interstate is locked up. But just to put a bow on this, I think overall Jared is right. I do think, though, that if I was going to sell Atlanta golf to someone not from the area, I would say, look, you can come to Atlanta and you have kind of a couple choices. You can go super budget, right, and play whatever, 5 or 6 different courses and keep it within $200 to $250. Then you're not going to get that in most places, and it's a decent bang for your buck. And it's all going to be right there near the city. You're going to miss the high-end public course, right? The other benefit I would say is, and as far as Atlanta goes in the suburbs, you can basically do a golf trip in Villa Rica and stay in Villa Rica as a cheap Airbnb and play Chapel Hills, both Mirror Lakes, throw in the Frog, throw in West Pines. That's an awesome golf trip. And then when you want to come into Atlanta and go, to the Coca-Cola factory or whatever tourist things you want to do on your golf trip, like, you can do that. You can drive 30 minutes and go downtown. So, and you can do the same thing, I think, in other suburb areas of the city. Get a cheap Airbnb, hit those courses up within a 20-minute drive of each other and have an awesome golf trip and go into Atlanta when you want to experience Atlanta. And so I think that's a cool aspect, and that's how I would sort of sell it if for someone considering Atlanta as a golf destination or golf trip.
I think that's a good sell. I totally agree with that. I mean, I've been on golf trips and we stay outside of the city a little bit just for a cheaper Airbnb, and then we go back into the city for, the more fun things or the touristy things. So I do want to hear from you guys again. So the question of this podcast is going to be, we're getting into the colder months. I don't know about you guys, but I'm a golf nut. You guys knew that from the first episode. So I'm going to be golfing all season long. And I want to know what you guys do to stay warm in the cooler months. I've got some winter hacks. I like to put hot tea or hot coffee in a thermos. And then I keep hand warmers in a head cover, and I throw my golf gloves in there. Then you have a nice toasty warm golf glove every time you hit. So yeah, you guys go ahead, go to speakpipe.com/ATL Golfs, and you'll be able to leave a voice message. And thank you again, Jared, for the voice message.
Well, Andrew, that was pretty fascinating with Scott.
Yeah, I thought that was super interesting.
I think our audience will appreciate some of the insights and a little bit of back and forth there. So that was good. Well, let's wrap things up. First of all, shout out to everyone that subscribed to the newsletter and referring your friends. It was a banner month, and so if you don't know, if you join the newsletter, we'll have the link below, but it's newsletter.atlgolfs.com. 2 referrals gets you a 1-hour free bay time at Green Office Golf, which is very quaint in Decatur, and it's just a great little spot there with CM. So shout out to her and Green Office Golf. And then you get 3 referrals. You get a free tee time at either Cobblestone or Heritage Golf Links. So shout out to those guys. Those are 2 great courses. And so refer your friends, get them into the newsletter, and get some free golf.
Sweet. That's awesome. You guys can find the newsletter at atlgolfs.com/newsletter. Sign up there. And thank you everyone for watching, listening. Make sure if you're listening on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts that you like, comment, and subscribe. I love to hear back. We haven't heard back from a lot of people, just mostly people supporting us, and that's always nice. Would love to hear your opinions on how the podcast is going. And that's pretty much it. This was episode 2 of the ATL Golfs Podcast, and we covered Steel Canyon. Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, y'all. Peace.
Everyone, I want to welcome Leo from Never Lost. He has graced us with his presence today, and thank you again for sponsoring us. Welcome, Leo.
Hey, Andrew, how you doing? That's awesome. I am excited to chat with you. And yeah, thankful to be able to sponsor this. So yeah.
Yeah, sweet. Well, I just wanted to ask you a couple questions, basically get the people to know you a little bit more. I think when I go to a local business and I meet the owner or like the manager or something, and I, end up creating like a connection of some sort that just makes me want to shop there more. So I just want you to tell us about yourself, how old you are, where'd you grow up, and, how did you fall in love with golf?
Yeah. So I recently just turned 28 last week-ish. Last week. Thank you. I'm originally from Venezuela. I was born there. I lived there for 3 years, then moved to Florida for a few years, and then have been in Georgia for the past 18 years, I'd say. But yeah, kind of, growing up, I played a few sports, prominently basketball. That was my first love there. And then into college, I kind of, did a little bit of some UX, which is, just making, the experiences that you see today, like the digital experiences you see today, like actual, designing them and learning and adapting to, feedback and things. And in that, I guess a little after college, I started golfing. I always gave golf shit, to be honest. Oopsie, if you want to bleep that out.
No.
I never cared for golf, and a lot of my friends were playing, and I was like, I don't know why you guys are liking this game. This is dumb. And then it was Masters. It was 2022 Masters, or was it 22 Masters? No, 2021 Masters actually. No, 22 Masters. I think Scotty won that one. Like me and my buddy, my best friend, like we we're putting in the middle of the house hallway, and I was like, "Oh, dude, I think I might like this game." And from there, I fell in love with the game. I have the exact date. The first date or the first day I hit a ball was I think April 15th to 2022 or 23, 22. Geez, I always forget the date. But really fun game. I'm addicted. I love this game as even more than basketball, to be honest. It kind of gives me the same vibe to it. It's like the shooter, you know, like a situation, I guess, that I love about basketball. But yeah, no, that's how I fell in love with the game. And honestly, I can't get enough. Yeah.
Sweet. That's awesome. So you've only been playing for what, 2.5, 3 years, basically. You started in the spring of 22.
Yeah, a little bit over 3 years. You know, right now I'm currently sitting at a 15.5 handicap, which I don't love because my average round is like 90. Like, and it's, I'm always like just telling myself, oh, what could I've done better? And I'm like, oh, I could have been in the 80s easily, and I never am. But yeah, whatever. It is what it is. That's why I love the game so much, because you get to chase something at all times.
A little history. The way me and Leo met basically was he was doing something on Instagram, and we both started connecting on this one topic basically. And then finally I messaged him. I was like, hey, do you want to try to get a round in? And we had time for what, like 15 or 16, but that front nine we played at Dogwood Golf Club. And, you know, we're talking, and it's like we're basically the same age. We had actually a ton of mutual friends. It was like we constantly had these like misconnections, and it was just really fun. So that's why I'm super glad Leo's here today. But
yeah,
Leo, I want to go more into Never Lost, basically. I've already asked you a couple questions when we were golfing, but the people want to know, what made you start Never Lost?
Yeah, so the idea of Never Lost was, I think, about, I'd say and a little bit more than 3 years ago. I was ideating on some just ideas, and I focused on this product. Never Lost itself was for everyday items, right? So for your phone, for your wallet, for book bag, whatever you want. And then, you know, a few things, just a few curveballs here and there. I kind of had a sign of just like, hey, you maybe need to niche down a little bit. And I, you know, spoke to a few mentors. I spoke to a ton of friends. I did some market research, and it led me to golf. I enjoyed golf at the moment. It's also a really good excuse to tell my fiance that, hey, you know, I got to go golf because I have to film content for the business. No, but
Make sure
yeah,
she doesn't
so
watch this.
no, she knows. I give her crap all the time about it. No, but yeah, it led me into golf, and it's a huge problem with golf. You know, we have some stats that Andrew already mentioned, stuff like that, and it's the game is growing even more. Therefore, things are going to be lost more. People are going to spend more to replace those, and yeah, it went from there. And you know, I have a passion in building things. I'm a UX designer, like I mentioned before, and so, you know, with technology, with just, you know, putting things together like Legos, like that's kind of, you know, what's kept me going with Never Lost, and, you know, what kind of sparked the idea of Never Lost as well.
I love it. I'm a serial club counter. Whenever I go back to my bag, I always count all my clubs. But I have lost a wedge before, and the way your heart just drops. The next round you play after you lose a club, you're like, where could that be? Like, where did I lose that?
Right.
Especially if it's something you use often. I remember I lost my 58 degree on the 18th green. And the next round I went to go play, I was like, where is that? And I got lucky. I got super lucky. I called the clubhouse, and they somehow had it. And it was a nice little Vokey wedge. So I got lucky, but I know a lot of people out there aren't as lucky. Whether it's, you know, picking up a club and leaving it in your bag and forgetting it to take it back to the pro shop, even maybe you had good intentions. I feel like that happens a lot too, is you throw it in your bag and then you just forget to take it to the pro shop, and then now you're too lazy to take it back. And so I love that Never Lost has that solution, basically, where you can just directly contact the owner and everything.
Just easier way to, you know, it's really just a streamlined process that we do, you know, pro shops already do today. You know, they just kind of know, you know, that, hey, this is a 56 degree from a Vokey, you know, with this type of grip, this type of grind, whatever, and then like expect someone to come. But yeah, it's kind of reversing those roles in a way that like, hey, instead of, you know, kind of you recording this, you can actually be, you know, proactive about something, you know, and actually reach out to the owner. And, you know, there's times where the owner might have already bought the wedge, you know, and now that, oh, hey, by the way, like this wedge has been here. Oh crap, that's my wedge that I lost a long time ago. Like
Yeah.
that type of situation also goes out the door when, you know, you have the ability to connect the dots, you know, this club, this person, boom.
100%. Makes it way easier. Kind of cuts out the middleman too.
Exactly.
That's pretty much all the questions I wanted to ask you. I do want to know, where do you see the future of Never Lost going?
Yeah, no,
This was a
I guess
doozy.
everyone on this podcast, everyone on this podcast doesn't have an NDA, but you know, to be honest, I don't, or NCA and an NDA, but I don't mind, because at the end of the day, building a business in itself is insanely hard. For Never Lost, the mission of helping golfers never lose golf stuff, for me, I'm, you know, for like, how do I improve the product right now when it comes to durability? I've made a series of like, we are Never Lost, and like, I'm working right now towards improving our products. Like, how do we make it easier for people to return things? And ideally, the goal is to never lose golf stuff. So, you know, later down the road, maybe looking into trackers and something like an air tag that is in the form factor of the club cap that I have, or that we offer, or the tags that we offer, the stickers that we offer. So something like that down the road for sure. And then also, you know, I've been teasing and not teasing. I just released a mulligan collection, which is pretty much me thrifting and repurposing polos from like a Goodwill or from other thrift stores, and you know, cleaning them up and packaging them up and selling them back to people that love that kind of like vintage or retro style. You know, is that like the technology side that I've been doing? No, but it is the same kind of mission of finding, you know, these garments a new place, right, a new home, and giving them a second chance, the way we've done for our clubs, you know, that we've lost, and things like that. So it all kind of ties in together. But yeah, just another way to kind of give another value proposition for people, and you know, give them another opportunity to connect with our brand and see what we're all about. And yeah.
I love that. And you already just mentioned it, the Mulligan collection. I know you told me already it's going to be dropping next week, or this week, I guess, on Friday. This Friday, it'll be October 17th. I also love that you're doing every third Friday of the month, keeping yourself on a schedule. I think I'm starting to learn something like that as the podcast, you know, pumping out an episode every 2 weeks has been kind of putting some pressure on me to try like stay ahead of everything. But I love it. It's, you know, it's a little bit stressful, but I enjoy the process so much. And I think, you know, are you kind of doing the same thing to push yourself even farther?
Yeah, honestly, yeah, no, it's difficult. And the great thing about it, at least from all of Never Lost in general, is how do I improve every day? Like, how do I get the process even better? How do I find things better? How do I clean things better? You know, things like that. So, you know, that deadline, or that kind of, you know, like date out there, kind of gives you that needed pressure to better it for your customers, right? So yeah, and then also like from a cadence perspective, our first drop, we have two things left. So most everything's sold out. And you know, to keep people coming back, a lot of people loved what they bought. You know, I want to serve our customers that way too, right? And serve their interests there too, and their opportunities to rock something that they wouldn't have found anywhere else, and feel better about their game, better about themselves. So for me, it's kind of like I'm committed to that. So you know, it adds to having that every third Friday launch.
Guys, I 100% recommend you follow Leo at never_lost.co, because dude, the cinematography of the little behind the scenes of the whole Mulligan collection, it's such a vibe. That's the only thing I can say, is that it's such a vibe. You do such a great job creating content and marketing for all your products and stuff like that too. So the Mulligan collection, I love this like whole series right now, and just I'm so excited to see what you drop on Friday. I'm pumped.
It's gonna be sick. A lot of Ashworth. What else do we? Some cool pieces. Polo golf, not like the RLX, but like the actual like vintage polo golf. There's a few cool things that honestly, I got to pull some pullovers that are like I would call them sweaters, categorize them, but they're really like quarter zips, etc. Those are going to be really cool, and I'm excited to see who gets them because honestly, I'm like I was so close to just probably won't release these because I'm going to keep them. But no, I'm definitely giving them out, and no, I'm excited. I really am. There's a bunch of really cool stuff this drop. So yeah.
Sweet. Well, Leo, is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah, no, yeah, guys, check us out. We're in Atlanta, local, small. It's a one-man show here, but with people like Andrew and Joe and really the community that we're building, that means a ton. To even get a follow or a like or like knowing us like that speaks. That's amazing. Like that, I'm so thankful for that. And again, Andrew, thank you for interviewing me and this podcast in general. I'm excited to see where it goes. And yeah, thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Leo.